Next, for our final talk of the day, we have Professor Diane Moore from the Harvard Divinity School.
So this is an impossible job, and I'm last. How fair. Thank you to my brilliant colleagues for your inspiring words. So I'm a queer, feminist, ordained Christian minister who specializes in social ethics. And I want to talk to you today about the two most important men in my life and what they taught me about and continue to teach me about love, commitment, belonging, and justice. Significant for both my story and these times, each of them taught me these values from opposite ends of the political, ideological spectrum and divisions that are currently ripping our demos apart. So this is a love story. The two men are my father and my mentor, both of whom are 93 years old this year. My mentor's birthday is today, literally, and my father's is exactly in 6 weeks. I've known them both for my entire life. My father was the youngest of 9 children, all boys, who grew up in a conservative rural Iowa in a family poor in means but abundant in love. His father was a switch operator for the railroad, and his mother a full-time homemaker who grew much of the food that fed them all on a plot of land next to the railroad tracks. She was devoted to the church, and thus so was her family. My father was the only one to attend college and did so on the GI Bill. He went to a conservative church school in Canton, Missouri, where he met my mother. They married when she was 18, and my eldest brother was born a year later, and my second brother a year after that. Far from both of their homes and their families, my parents lived in a trailer supplied by the college and survived those early, difficult years thanks to the generosity of neighbors and friends. Seeing little hope for the future in Canton for his growing family, my dad responded to an ad in a trade magazine for a supplies manager position at a family-owned bookstore in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the University of Michigan campus. He got the job and moved from epicenters of conservatism in rural Iowa and Missouri to an epicenter of liberal progressivism in the university town of Ann Arbor. Keep that in mind. He joined the Christian church of his upbringing there, and both my parents became active members. In 1955, my dad was on the search committee to hire the new pastor, who became my lifelong mentor, Russell Fuller. I was born 2 years later in 1957, and Russ dedicated me as a newborn. So I got really involved with the church as an adolescent during the late 1960s and early 1970s, which were tumultuous years in our nation's history. The civil rights movement was in full swing, the Vietnam War was increasingly controversial, and the second wave of feminism was gaining public attention. The church was actively involved in both the civil rights and the anti-war movements, and I came to equate religious commitment with commitments to social justice and to peace. Russ's ability to treat all of the members of that community with genuine respect also encouraged and created a thriving and diverse community in spite of the political progressiveness of the times. But still, in spite of this rich diversity, my father struggled with this progressive expression of religion and found the anti-war sentiments especially challenging. Remember his socially conservative upbringing and his status as a war veteran. In addition, he was confronted every day at the store that he worked in and the University of Michigan campus with condescension from professors and students alike who didn't think he was their equal and who lectured him about politics and all manner of other things as a captive audience meant to serve them as customers. The nation was deeply divided around political and social issues, and my father found himself surrounded in both church and work with people who held very different views from those he was raised with and held dear. My own developing socially progressive consciousness also caused tension between us in our home that lasted for several years. Still, he stayed in that church and in that community. Though my social and political views were more aligned with my mentor, Russ, than they were with my father during my formative adolescence, in young adulthood, my identification as a lesbian proved challenging for them both. For my father, it was just another difference that divided us and he was personally hurt and confused. For Russ, it was more complicated, but similarly alienating for us both. Now, I don't have time, and you'll be happy to hear I don't have time to share even snippets of the many transformational moments that have occurred over the last 35 years between me and each of these extraordinary men. By way of overview, though, let me say that I went through a significant stage of self-righteous dogmatism, rooted in my own rigid understanding of feminist lesbianism, and also extended to other areas of righteous indignation. I was really good at righteous indignation, and I learned a lot of that actually here at Harvard when I was a graduate student. I will also say that neither Russ nor my father adopted similar ideological binaries of right-wrong, good-bad, educated, unenlightened, sophisticated, crude, or others that I regularly espoused then and that are common currency today. So fast forward to the present. My father and I are extremely close, and we have been for years. My greatest regret is that I live so far from both of my parents, who still live in the home I grew up in Ann Arbor. Russ and I Skype every Saturday, and we have done so for several years. He remains my most important and significant mentor. So what did I learn from them, and how is it relevant for us here in this room and in this time in our history? I'll share 3 lessons and 4 pleas. Lesson 1, I learned unconditional belonging. It's different than unconditional love. I think it's broader than that. It's a sense of what it means to be able to trust and feel a belonging unconditionally in communities of difference. I think we have so rare opportunities to do that now, and I think it's a really lost and important opportunity. I also learned courage. What's it mean to be courageous enough to live in a community of difference? Share your views, but be open to the views of others and to allow yourself to change. And finally, I learned humility from both of them. The humility of recognizing that they don't know everything and have things to learn from others. So my pleas, P-L-E-A-S. Don't dismiss our elders. They have more to teach us than most of us could ever learn in 100 of our fast-paced, overburdened, fragmented lives. And second, be grateful for, but also suspicious of this Ivy League education we so prize. I'm actually not so convinced that you or me as an alum are the best and the brightest. I think we're bright. We're bright enough, but we're also really lucky. And I think remembering that luck is an important dimension of what it means to really take seriously this privilege of the education that we are able to enjoy. This education can open us to new understandings, but it can also close us to other multiple intelligences that may, in the end, be the very ones that will save us. Third, find and join, and if you don't know them, create communities that value unconditional belonging with people who are different than you. And finally, in a combination of courage and humility, I hope that we approach all of our moral commitments, our political commitments, our passions, in a spirit of what one of my mentors, Sharon Welch, called being wholehearted and half sure. wholehearted in our commitments and our passions, trusting we have a lot to offer, but also half sure, realizing that we have a lot to learn. Thank you.